Hello everybody, and welcome back to our Rain World modding tutorial series. This video is a small addendum to the video on shelters that I did, as there is a pretty concerning bug that I've just figured out after doing some testing on a friend's region. And I think it's important that this information is out there, especially if you're trying to be wacky with your shelters. As you know, being wacky is always appreciated. So a typical shelter will look something like this, right? You have a tube and then a little area for you to rest. A wackier shelter might be something like this, where you get to see the side exposed of a building. Very cool idea. But in principle, it's a little cubby hole for you to rest in. So the specific bug that I'm talking about is in how the game tries and finds the position to put the player. So for a shelter room, when it loads the room, or in fact, if you are about to load the room, that meaning if you are close by in a adjacent room, the game will try and find this position, right? And the way that it will do this is it will try and find every shortcut position. And the way that the game will do this is, unlike how for creating connections in a region where you start searching from the top left, the game actually searches from the bottom left. And a small thing to note here is that in this video, I assumed that it went from horizontally. So it, do left to right and then go up and then do left to right. But it actually searches in columns. So it'll go up and then move over to the right, and then it'll go up and move over to the right, and then up and move. So the sort of like specific positions of things and like orders of things matter. So just be aware of that. For shelters, it would search for the bottom left, and it would search and scroll and go up and scroll and scroll and go until it finds this position right here. And then it will try and find the direction that this shelter is going in. So it'll go through 4 directions. It'll say, is this tile solid? Is this tile solid? Is this tile solid? Is this tile solid? Now for our example, this tile is not solid. So it assumes that, okay, the direction of this shelter is east. So once the game has figured the direction of the shelter, the game will attempt to find the spawn position for the player, where you wake up, essentially. The way that the game will do this is by first entering a while loop. Now, a while loop is a loop based on a specific condition. It keeps running until that condition is not met. So, while this condition is true, do this. And this while loop sees, okay, from the direction that we chose, from east in our example, is the tile east solid or not? So we start here. The tile east of this would be here. This is not solid. So we set the position to be here, and we do again. Is this solid? Is this solid? Is this solid? Is this solid? Etc., until it comes here, and it says, okay, is the tile east of us solid? Yes, it is. So we stop here. This is our spawn position. So far, it's not done. Then the game will do the same thing, but for going down. So it'll say, is the tile below us solid? So for us, the tile below us is air, so we move here, and we check below us is air, so we move here, and we check below us, and below us is solid, so we stop here, and this tile becomes the position that the player will spawn at. For shelters that go up, there is an extra condition, so it'll start out like normal, and it will go up until it finds a wall, stop here, If it goes up, it'll try and go to the left. So, is the left of this tile air? Yes, it is. Is the left of this tile air? Until it gets here, and then it'll go down. So for our example, this position would be where the player spawns. Now, normally, in most circumstances, this is all fine and this is all good. And there's not going to be any issue. However, if you have, say, something like this, if you think back, you might be able to see what exactly the problem is here. But for those who don't, let's go through it, shall we? The first step is to start from the bottom left and try and find the first shortcut. So it'll go, and it will find this shortcut. Now, obviously, this is not where we want the door to be, but the game doesn't know that. And it's fine to have multiple entrances in a shelter room. There is, in fact, a region kit feature which allows you to specify where to put the door. In fact, you can have multiple doors with the thing. Even if you have a region kit placed shelter door up there, it'll still do this calculation. So, we're here. And the direction, obviously, is going to be east. So we will go and find, is this tile air? Is this tile air? Is this tile air? And it will go, and it will go, and it will go until it finds here. But then, the problem is, it'll then try and find the floor. So, is the tile below me air? Is the tile below me air? Is the tile below me air? And it will keep going forever. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about here? This is out of bounds. Well, if you know anything about level editing, you should know that the true out of bounds is this border. So what happens here? Well, if you know anything about level editing, you should know that the way that the game treats out of bounds is to repeat the border infinitely. So below here isn't what you see, it would actually be this, because it's this row repeated infinitely downwards. So below here is always going to be air, because it itself is air, even if you put this row, this position, it's still air, and it's on the buffer, so this will be repeated infinitely outwards, so it is essentially just air. And this will never stop. The while loop will never break until after maybe a minute or two, when the game gives up. But that is a serious lag spike, and we do not want that. So, the simple solution here would be place something here, or place something here. Just a single thing, just a single tiny thing out of the way, such that the game can initially find its correct spawn position, before then, say, region kit will override it for an example like this with multiple entrances. Before I move on to the next example, I want to say that if you have a shelter with multiple entrances, like the one we just looked at, it will actually do this calculation for all of the entrances. Because in the code, after it finds the first, entrance, there is a call to break the for loop. Now, I'm assuming that's a bug because it breaks out of the column search, not the whole search. So, so it'll do this calculation, say, 4 times if you have a shelter with 4 entrances. So, if 4 of your entrances are broken in this way, it'll take
8 minutes to load or whatever, because it has to do this every time. So you need to make sure that all of your entrances to your shelter, even if they're not like a place where you can actually sleep, any entrance into that room needs to, be aware of this bug. So I just needed to say that before, leaving things off. It's not just the first one it finds, it's all of them. Okay, I'll let you get back to the other example.
Let's take a look at another example. Say you are making something like Metropolis, where it doesn't rain, so you can sleep anywhere, right? Well, in this example, it's the same thing. It'll try and go upwards, but it won't stop. It'll keep going upwards forever. Even if you put like a wall here, well, it'll just reach that wall, but then it will go to the left forever. So you'd have to put something here. So it would go up, and then reach here, and then it would go down again. Now, if you had something like this, then once it gets here, it's going to go down forever again. So you need, to fill in those proper areas. Now, if you need it to be invisible, a clever trick would be to, in the level editor, use something like the invisible material or the void tile, both of which are invisible, but technically count as solid geometry. So if you're ever doing some wacky stuff with shelters and you are getting mysteriously long loading times, this would be why, and this would be how to fix it. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and I hope that this will ease your region making troubles. Bye bye.